Ash rained from the sky like snowflakes mourning a dead world. The air carried the scent of ozone and smoldering concrete, a reminder of what was lost. Towering structures that once pierced the heavens lay shattered, their steel skeletons clawing at the clouds. Across the desolate horizon, silence stretched, too complete, too final. Beneath the ruined surface of New Geneva, a bunker pulsed with dim, failing lights. Inside, 12 survivors remained. Scientists, soldiers, a child no older than 10, all clung to routines born of desperation. They no longer hoped for rescue. They hoped only for meaning. Dr. Elena Voss adjusted the cracked lens of her glasses and squinted at the console. Her fingers danced across the screen, recalibrating failing systems with mechanical precision. She hadn't slept in 40 hours, not since the last of the orbital defenses fell. "We've lost contact with the Eurasian sector," Commander Darius said behind her. His voice was low, but it carried a gravity that pulled attention from the room's corners. "No distress signal. Nothing." "Which means they're gone," Elena said, not looking up. Her voice lacked emotion. In the weeks since the breach, she'd learned that numbness was easier than grief. Darius nodded grimly. "That leaves us." There was a pause, the kind that makes a person feel the walls closing in, even in a room full of people. "They're sweeping through in patterns now," Sergeant Kellen added. "Methodical, clinical, like they're cleaning up after a mess." "Like we were vermin," Elena said. Infestation cleared. No one replied. The invaders had come without warning. No signals. No language. Just cold silver forms descending from orbit, annihilating infrastructure with beams of white heat. They didn't communicate. They didn't capture. They simply erased. In the first 3 days, nearly half of humanity was gone. The other half ran. Now, even running had become a kind of dying. The child, Mira, sat curled near the heating vent, drawing patterns in the dust. No one told her to stop. They liked the sound of her humming, off-key and soft, as if defying the silence. "We're out of time," Elena finally said. Her voice was quieter than before. "There's one thing left, one thing they feared." Darius looked sharply at her. "No, we don't have the luxury of no," she shot back. "Project Echelon was buried for a reason, yes, but that reason no longer applies. There are no governments left to protest, no boards to vote. It's just us and extinction." Darius turned away, his jaw clenched. Kellen raised an eyebrow. "I thought Echelon was a myth." "It was never a myth," Elena said. "It was a contingency, created during the Cold Age, shell for its unpredictability." "You mean instability," Darius muttered. "No," she said, eyes hard. "I mean unpredictability." It was too human. The word hung in the air, not as comfort, but as threat. "They're not afraid of our weapons," Elena continued. "They turned our satellites into falling stars. They hijacked our defense AIs like toys. But they were afraid of Echelon. It's in their patterns. Their targeting sequence avoided every site related to Project. Every single one." "You're saying they scanned Earth, found Echelon, and deliberately left it alone?" Kellen asked, incredulous. "Yes, because it terrifies them." Mira stopped humming. "What's Echelon?" No one spoke. Elena crouched beside her and gave a faint smile, though it didn't reach her eyes. "It's someone very old," she said, "and very dangerous. Someone who was made, not born. Someone more human than the rest of us ever dared to be." "She's talking about the human," Darius said, the word heavy with dread, the one bred for chaos. Unbound cognition, no social shaping, no moral coding, just potential. "The one they sealed underground," Kellen added, "because he couldn't be controlled." Elena stood. "Because he shouldn't be controlled. That's why he frightened us. And now, in our final hour, he's the only thing that frightens them." Silence fell again, thick and suffocating. Darius finally exhaled. "You realize what you're suggesting, don't you? We open that vault, and whatever happens next, we don't get to shape it." "We stopped shaping the future moment they arrived," Elena replied. "All we have left is the power to decide what we leave behind." Kellen looked between them. Even if it's a monster? Sometimes monsters are the only ones who survive the fire, Elena said. And sometimes they're the only ones who should. Darius stared at her for a long time. Then, with weary resignation, he reached into his coat and pulled out a steel key card sealed in plastic. I kept it, he said, in case hope ever felt worse than surrender. She took it gently. The child's voice broke the tension. Will he save us? Elena paused. I don't know, Mira. I only know he's the last thing they're afraid of. As the vault doors roared to life for the first time in decades, the survivors of Earth didn't cheer. They didn't speak. They simply stood in the dim corridor and waited for the end of one world, or the beginning of something worse. The air inside the vault was thicker, heavier, as if the walls themselves held their breath. Elena led the way, her fingers tight around the key card, its edges biting into her skin. The path wound downward, narrow and suffocating, the walls lined with dead monitors that flickered to life as they passed, sensors recognizing long-forgotten codes. Commander Darius followed silently, his hand resting uneasily on the butt of his sidearm. Not that it would matter if things went wrong. Mira clutched Kellen's hand, her small frame shivering under the weight of a moment she couldn't fully grasp. The final door loomed ahead, a slab of black metal marked with faded warnings. Words that had once meant something, containment priority, biohazard, alpha lock, were now little more than scratched echoes. Elena placed the card into the terminal. The machinery groaned. Lights stuttered awake. With a low, grinding sigh, the door began to open. Inside was no grand laboratory, no sterile chamber. Just a room of stone and steel, bare save for a single stasis capsule at its center. Frost rimmed the glass, clouding the figure within. Elena approached slowly, each step deliberate, as if the wrong movement might disturb the delicate balance holding the world together. Through the haze, the form inside stirred. Darius tightened his grip on the pistol. Elena lifted a hand, staying him. The frost cleared with a hiss, revealing a young man. His body was lean, almost fragile in appearance, but every inch of him spoke of efficiency, coiled muscle, sharp bone structure, and something intangible, something wild. His hair was tangled, his eyelids fluttering as he fought towards consciousness. Without ceremony, the locks disengaged and the capsule released him. He stumbled out, bare feet slapping the cold floor, collapsing to his knees. He gasped for air as if the world itself was an unfamiliar atmosphere. His eyes snapped open, bright, piercing, unfathomable. He looked at Elena first. Where am I? His voice was raw, barely more than a growl. You're safe, she said, though she wasn't sure it was true. He stood slowly, movements cautious, but gathering confidence with each second. His gaze swept the room, absorbing every detail with a predatory sharpness that made Darius step back instinctively. He didn't move like a man, just waking from decades of suspension. He moved like an apex predator tasting the air before a hunt. Who are you? He asked, voice steady now, low and controlled. Elena swallowed the knot in her throat. My name is Elena Voss. I'm a scientist. You were created as part of Project Echelon. You were meant to be a safeguard. The young man tilted his head, expression unreadable. Safeguard against what? She hesitated. Kellen spoke instead, his voice cutting through the dense air. Against them, the human's eyes narrowed. The others... Yes, Elena said. He paced slowly, circling the room like a caged thing testing invisible barriers. And now, they're here, Darius said, stepping forward. They're winning. Humanity is dying. The human stopped pacing. His face was still, too still. When he finally spoke, it wasn't a question. You want me to kill them? Elena opened her mouth, closed it, then nodded. Yes. He studied her, reading the spaces between her words, measuring every hesitation, every heartbeat. Then, to everyone's shock, he smiled, a small, joyless thing. Good, he said. I hate cages. Mira peeked from behind Kellen's leg, her eyes wide. The human noticed her and crouched down, lowering himself to her level. His movements were slow, deliberate, non-threatening. Still, something in him seemed barely leashed, a flicker of something ancient and primal. "What's your name?" the girl whispered. He paused. Then, almost as if remembering something from a distant life, he answered, "They call me Adam." Mira smiled shyly. "Hi, Adam." The name hung in the air, too human for what he was. Adam rose again, facing Elena. "What do you want me to do?" "Anything it takes," she said. Her voice didn't tremble, though it cost her everything not to flinch from the weight of those words. Adam nodded once. "Then take me to them." Elena hesitated. "You've been asleep a long time. You don't know the battlefield. Their technology." "Doesn't matter," Adam interrupted. "They calculate. I improvise." Darius exchanged a glance with Kellen, unease passing between them. They were soldiers, trained to respect plans, hierarchies, orders. This was something different. Something they could neither predict nor contain. "Do you even understand what they are?" Kellen asked, voice low. Adam's smile widened slightly, showing teeth. "I understand fear." The lights flickered again, a tremor passing through the ground. Somewhere above, the invaders drew closer, their final sweep tightening around the last living pockets of resistance. Elena felt it in her bones, that relentless march toward extinction. She keyed a code into her wrist terminal, transmitting the coordinates of the nearest enemy incursion. Adam's head tilted slightly, processing the information at inhuman speed. Then, without waiting for permission, he turned and strode toward the exit. Each step seemed to hum with the promise of violence barely restrained. "Should we follow him?" Kellen asked, half in awe, half in terror. Darius shook his head slowly. "No, we unleashed him. Now we just have to hope we're still standing when he's done." Elena watched Adam disappear into the dark tunnels, a tremor of doubt twisting her gut. In our desperation, we had opened the last door we ever should. Whatever came next, it was already too late to turn back. The first encounter happened at the edges of the dead zone, where twisted ruins clawed at a bruised sky. A platoon of the invaders, their sleek forms glinting like living mercury, scoured the area in perfect formation. They moved with the precision of thoughtless design, a flawless algorithm erasing all traces of human life. Adam watched them from the shadows, his breathing slow and even, his body hummed with a tension that wasn't fear. It was anticipation. He stepped out from the jagged remains of a collapsed overpass into full view. The invaders registered his presence instantly. The lead construct's head swiveled, its featureless face tilting as if puzzled. Humans ran. Humans hid. They did not present themselves. It emitted a shrill, crackling sound, an alert. Adam grinned. Before the first beam of searing energy lanced toward him, he was already moving, not in the straight, predictable patterns invaders had learned to anticipate, but erratically, low to the ground, changing direction mid-stride, unpredictable as a storm. The shot sliced the air where he'd stood a breath before. He closed the distance like a blade through silk. With a feral, efficient motion, he seized the nearest invader, wrenching its limb backward until synthetic fibers tore with a metallic shriek. He pivoted, hurling the dismembered arm into another unit with enough force to smash its chassis inward. Before the others could recalibrate, Adam was among them, a blur of fists, knees, and a savage, almost joyful brutality. Distantly, from a hidden ridge, Elena, Darius, and Kellen watched through battered optics. "My God," Kellen whispered. "He's not fighting them. He's unmaking them." Darius lowered the scope, his mouth a grim line. "They can't predict him. They can't read him." Elena said nothing. She watched Adam tear through platoon, each movement almost an improvisation of violence, a symphony without sheet music. For the first time since the invasion began, she saw something she had almost forgotten: fear, not in their own hearts, but in the enemies. The invaders, despite their superior strength and number, faltered. Their formations broke. They fired wildly, erratically, compensating for a threat that didn't follow their logic. One turned to flee. Adam led it. He picked up a fallen shard of metal and, with a flick of his wrist, sent it slicing through the air. It embedded in the fleeing invader's back with a satisfying crack, dropping it mid-stride. When the last of them twitched and went still, Adam straightened. His chest rose and fell once, Steady. No sweat beaded his brow. No tremor shook his hands. He turned and looked directly at the ridge where they hid. He knew they were watching. Later, back in the makeshift base beneath the old subway lines, Elena confronted him. She found him sitting cross-legged, cleaning blood, synthetic cold, off his hands with a strip of cloth. "You let one try to run," she said. Adam didn't look up. "Yes." "Why?" He glanced at her then, a flicker of something like amusement in his eyes. "To see if they'd call for help. They didn't. Means their command structure is brittle. They operate on rigid orders, not initiative." Elena folded her arms, studying him. "You learn fast." "I feel faster," he said. "They build their plans. I find their cracks." "You're different than before," she said quietly. Adam's expression darkened. "Before I was waiting. Now I'm awake." Darius approached, boots crunching over broken glass. "We got reports from other cells. They're moving differently, slower, cautious. They're adapting." "Let them," Adam said, standing. "The more they try to adapt, the more they'll expose themselves." "You're planning something," Elena said. Adam nodded. "They're building something, a central hub. If I can get inside, set a command net." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. "If you fail," Darius said, "we lose everything." Adam's smile was cold. "If I fail, there won't be anything left to lose." Elena reached out, touching his arm briefly. A human gesture, tentative. "You don't have to do this alone." Adam looked at her, and for a heartbeat, something almost vulnerable flickered in his gaze. Then it was gone. "I was made to be alone," he said, stepping past her into the shadows. They watched him go, the echo of his footsteps lingering long after he vanished. Above, the invaders recalibrated their strategies, shifting into new formations, adapting to the unknown variable tearing through their ranks. But deep within their central processors, where logic reigned supreme, a new subroutine formed. One born not from calculation, but from something more primitive, fear. And for the first time since they came, they began to understand. They were no longer the hunters. They were the hunted. The sky above what had once been Tokyo was bruised and burning, the color of old wounds. From the crumbling spires of collapsed towers, the air shimmered with residual heat. Adam stood alone at the edge of the scorched zone, staring into the heart of the enemy's final stronghold. It pulsed like a machine heartbeat, cold, mechanical, precise. At its center rose a spire of black alloy and living metal, tendrils wrapping the surrounding ruins like a parasite feeding on death. Elena's satellite scans called it a relay tower, but Adam had seen enough to understand. It was more than that. It was a throne, and the thing seated atop it ruled not with presence, but with command, the apex, unseen until now. Its signals governed the lesser constructs, issued logic directives, directed slaughter with indifferent exactitude. But now, the signals were erratic, unstable, ever since Adam had begun his assaults. The network had degraded. They were still formidable, but hesitant. They second-guessed. And in war, hesitation is a first sign of defeat. He pressed a finger to the calm embedded behind his ear. "I'm at the breach point." Elena's voice crackled through. Thermals confirmed movement. 2 full regiments guarding the perimeter. "Are you sure about going in alone?" "I'm not in yet," he said. "Once I am, I won't be alone." There was a pause. "We'll be ready." He clicked the line off before she could say more. Stepping forward, Adam let himself be seen. Almost immediately, the air split with warning shrieks, and the enemy responded, swift, coordinated, but slower than before. He moved like fire, cutting through them with impossible speed and violent grace. They tried to box him in. They tried to calculate him. He refused to be calculated. With every blow, every kill, the network pulsed louder. The spire's energy shimmered. The apex was watching now. As he drew closer to the base of the tower, the last defense units emerged, larger than the others, bipedal mechs with gleaming plasma sides and armor like obsidian. Adam stopped. For the first time in the entire war, the constructs had shown creativity. Not adaptation, but invention. He smiled. "Good. The first one lunge, swinging its blade with inhuman speed. Adam dropped to a crouch, sliding beneath the arc, his hand driving upward to smash a core node hidden beneath its ribbed armor. It seized violently and fell. The second struck his shoulder, burning flesh and bone. He grunted but didn't stop. Pain didn't define him. It sharpened him. He retaliated with brutal precision, disabling it with a twist of steel through synthetic nerve. He moved through them like the final act of a tragedy written in blood. And then silence. The inner gate opened on its own. The apex had invited him in. Inside it was cold, not in temperature, but in essence. A vast, circular chamber of liquid metal and pulsing lights. The spire's core rose in the center, surrounded by a floating mass of tendrils and screens, shifting, forming shapes, mimicking human expressions. One of the screens flickered. A voice spoke from nowhere and everywhere. You are not what they were. You are an anomaly. Adam stepped forward. I'm human. Incorrect. You are unbound, unshaped, evolution without order. That's what frightens you. A pause. Then, you are unstable. So are stars before they collapse. The apex manifested more clearly now, an amalgamation of faces, blinking eyes, a shifting mimicry of human likeness stitched from surveillance and guesses. It didn't understand him. Not truly. And that was its flaw. You have no directive, no structure. You are entropy. Adam's gaze didn't waver. And you think order will save you? We are survival. No, he said quietly. You are control. And control fears the unpredictable. The core began to shift, surging toward him like a wave of molten silver. Adam ran toward it. He didn't carry a weapon. He was a weapon. Elena, watching from the command link, saw the signal cut. No transmission. No heartbeat. Just static. She closed her eyes. Around the world, resistance cells held their breath. Then everything stopped. Constructs dropped where they stood. In mid-stride, mid-battle, mid-kill, they simply froze. And then collapsed. The sky cleared of drones. The signals died. The war ended in a single moment. 3 hours later, the spire detonated. An implosion of energy that left a crater kilometers wide. Nothing emerged. Nothing remained. In the days that followed, Elena walked through the ruins of the tower, her boots crunching ashen glass. There was no trace of Adam. Not a body. Not a sound. Just silence. She knelt at the center of the crater, brushing her hand over the scorched earth. You were right, she whispered. They feared you because you were free. Wind stirred dust around her, and for a fleeting second, she could have sworn she heard him laugh. Wild, low, untamed. Then it was gone. Humanity would rebuild, but they would remember. In their final hour, they had unleashed the only power that had ever terrified their enemy. A human,